Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I will be joined by my co-host, Michael Hall, here very, very soon. But the title of tonight's episode is Recap and Project. And to be able to help us be able to recap the preseason and to project into the regular season, which is about 2 weeks away, we have our good friend of the show, Mr. Felix Trammell. Thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday evening, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that game yesterday, because watching it on TV, man, that was brutal. I said on Twitter yesterday, we got there all three phases was putrid, and obviously Dan Quinn agreed with me in his post-game presser.
Yeah, the preseason doesn't matter, but the effort and execution does. And I think week one was a lack of effort. I think week three, yesterday was a lack of execution. It just was not there from that second, third tier of the roster. And that was disappointing. The coaches were very upset. I mean, because that's not how they want to portray. Losing is one thing. That the win and loss really didn't matter, but it was the execution. There was a lot of execution mistakes. I thought it was a lot of good effort out there. It was just going in the wrong direction or misguided effort. But like week one was just a lack of urgency and lack of effort, and I think that put some alarm bells in Quinn and his staff's ears. But it wasn't much better in person, other than it was a nice day. Nobody really got hurt, so those are positives. But it's never good to see the team up north come in and play well like they did, because they did play well. They played aggressive and they played well, and they had a game plan and they executed very well.
Yeah, and it's one thing, like and especially in preseason, you'd want to see a win. Like obviously, the Ravens wanted to keep that undefeated streak as long as they could, but it's one thing to like lose, but it's another thing to not even have a chance to win, which is certainly what it seemed like in all three games. And the bright spot, you could say, the preseason thus far, Felix, I'm not sure about you, but would be what the starters did in week two, with being the 4 run plays, just going right down the field like a hot knife through butter. But then yesterday, I would say the one positive was that we got to see Brandon Coleman, who was legitimately good. And I watched the All-22 earlier. Very good. He was a difference maker up there. And we also got to see Jordan McGee, which they weren't supposed to play, but it looks like Coach gave them the ability to. So that being said, what did you see from Brandon Coleman, and what did you think of Jordan McGee?
Those are definitely two of my standouts. A lot more with McGee, because McGee got more playing time. When we spoke to Coleman in the locker room yesterday, he advocated to play. Like, he wanted to play. And I actually asked Dan Quinn this in his presser. What did you think of that? And some of those guys like Amos and McGee and all the stuff that wanted to play today. And he appreciates the character, because that's the type of team they're trying to build.
Yeah.
Those type of character guys that could have taken it off, but chose not to, and they wanted to get work. So like Brandon Coleman just said, he's like, I wanted to get some reps in. I know what I need to be for week one. So a second-year player understanding the gravitas of that, because he's going to be a very important piece to what Washington does on offense. So for him to go out there and do that, it just shows a lot about that kid, his character, and he played well. Like that first drive, Washington ran the ball right down the field, like Baltimore did. They just had an execution mistake and a missed field goal. But that they moved the ball down the field with that with players who are really going to be on the roster. So you have to look at it that way. And McGee finally shows the athleticism that we've all been dreaming to see in a game, because we've seen it in practice a lot. I've seen it in training camp a lot, but you want to see it in a game, and you were actually able to see that. Now it's very raw, it's very, very raw, but you can't teach athleticism, and he has that, and he has a knack for the ball. So you saw a lot of times where it was a misplay, somebody missed a tackle or something, then McGee was standing right there. So those are definitely two positives from yesterday.
Yeah, now obviously McGee, he started out the drive really well. I put this on Twitter. He started out really well, and you could see by the end of that first drive, he was gassed. And he
Hmm.
actually, he didn't get pancaked, but he got thrown on the ground. And at that point, you can just tell when a guy is falling because he's just tired. And that's exactly what it was. And it's like, that's why you needed those reps for Jordan McGee to get him back into that kind of rhythm of using the cardio, you could say. Sorry, and now we're joined by Hall.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think coming into the season, a lot of people were kind of they were okay with the offense. They knew that the offense was going to be with Jaden, and obviously if Terry's out there, which we all think he will be, and they met in Debo and whatnot. But the questions were on the defensive side of the ball. With the additions that they've made through the draft and free agency, what you've seen throughout training camp, and for a little bit of that second preseason game, do you think that they did enough on the defensive side of the ball to kind of keep pace with the offense?
I think they made the defense a lot better, and they did it in two or three areas. The strongest defensive area last year was the linebacking core. Those two linebackers are back. They had to get the defensive line better and deeper, and they did. I think defensive line is the strongest position on this team as we speak, and that's going to be a hard cut. Like honestly, I can make a case for 12 guys
Yeah.
easily. Like just wholeheartedly, I can make a case for 12 guys, and it's probably going to be 10, but I can make a case for 12. They really revamped that. There's only one guy who's would be there longer than 2 years on that defensive line. That's Deron Payne. That is a total revamp of what was up front. They're either second or first year guys up there. That says a lot. And I think they did very good in the secondary. I think corners now go five deep when Washington for some years was one deep, maybe if you were lucky.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to allow the defense to be better because Joe Wade doesn't have to protect people. Like you don't have to protect say a St. Juice on the outside with the safety because now it's taking two people out of the play, so the middle of the field becomes open for the run. Now you have strong safeties, which you have strong corners, which means safeties don't always have to be there to protect them, which means they can come more downhill, which means linebackers can come downhill, and that's how you get better against the run. So I know we saw a little bit of it. I think that first drive they were off the field if Luvu doesn't just jump off sides, but they prove what they need to do. Kinlaw's going to be very effective. The line is just so much bigger. And that was the weakness last year, especially against Philadelphia, was the lack of girth up front and how easily they were moved. I think that has been fixed. Now I think the issue is your top ends are very good, but the depth is something to be concerned about. And really, it's at the linebacker position. You're hoping that Luvu and Wagner can hold up because if those two are out there, you have two top 100 players that can do it all. But there's going to be a drop off if one of those two aren't out there, and I think that's where you get a little iffy about the defense. But it's been improved dramatically with the additions that were between the draft and free agency.
Yeah, and especially not being out there, it begs the question, Felix, with the elephant in the room with Brian Robinson. There's been others speculating that this was a long time coming, that they kind of sensed this. Others, like myself, view that something might have happened as recently. But if you could kind of give us some insight into not only why that move was made, but do you also have confidence? Because I think being Captain Obvious, I think it's going to be a running back by committee going into this season, which I think that they are very confident with, obviously. What say you?
Um, this was a move that was not planned, but happened because of certain actions. Um, in July, this was not the plan. When training camp opened, this was not the plan. Plan was for B Rob to be RB1, all of that. Things did change, and part of it was brought on by B Rob himself. And I tweeted this out. This team, if you do not want to be here, they will move you out of here. And the biggest example of that is Jonathan Allen.
Hmm.
Jonathan Allen, even though he was a franchise stalwart, didn't wasn't perceived as a team guy, and so they made arrangements for him to go, and it was pretty drastic, it was pretty quick. Same thing with B Rob. When they got to that point, they moved him pretty quickly. Conversely, that's why Terry McLaurin's not going anywhere. He does not really want to go. The team does not want him to go. That's why they're at this impasse they're at. So they were always going to be by committee. B Rob is just going to get more carries than anybody else, but there's still going to be carries for Eckler in this offense. There was still going to be carries for like a Bill or a McNichols or a Rodriguez in this offense. There was going to be carries for a Debo in this offense. And there are going to be carries for Jaden Daniels in this offense. I named 5 people. So it was always going to be by committee. The hope was to have B-Rob be more of that leading rusher and take some of those blows away, but it's still going to be by committee. And I think Eckler is your main dog right now, with Bill as the change of pace back, and then Rodriguez and McNichols. McNichols backing up Eckler, and Rodriguez backing up Bill with being that more interior type running back. But it's still going to be by committee, and Debo's going to get carries, and Jaden's probably going to lead the team in rushing again because a lot of his yards come off of non-rushing plays anyway. So that by committee was going to be the plan all along, but it was a sudden shift, and it was just brought on by actions by B Rob and why he was moved.
Would you say, if you had to guess, would you say it was probably based on workload not being met, or is it more like of a personal thing?
B Rob, so one thing I can say, it was more personal.
Okay.
It was more personal. There was just some actions on his part that the team just did not agree with,
Okay.
and they decided to move on. It was going to be a contract year. They were going to allow him to get as many carries as he needed to sustain the offense. And I think the offense in year 2, with all the weapons that it does have, is going to go to another level, where you did not need him to carry 20 times a game, but he could have gotten 15 very good carries that would have moved chains, especially in the second half of games. So, but it was more of a personal thing than anything, because he knew the rule coming in, so it didn't drastically change once training camp started.
Okay.
Right. Well, wish him the best out in San Francisco. Obviously, you mentioned Terry. He's the elephant in the room right now. Obviously, everyone is not the elephant in the room, but I'm saying like just the
No,
that's
I
everyone.
just used that for the B-Rob question.
Oh,
Saying
did. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so everyone's like gonna watch him under a microscope, and it's gonna sway people's opinions one way or the other. But at the end of the day, I think we all think he's gonna be out there week 1, suited up on the field. But do you think that with 2 weeks left before the season starts, that they somehow hammer a contract out, or do you think he just goes into the season playing on his current deal, and we got to go through this whole ridiculousness in 2026 again?
That all depends on Terry. Terry and his agent have to come to grips of where Terry's position is, where his leverage is. And when that happens, the deal will happen. And whenever that is, like, it could be tomorrow, because yesterday he was a pretty sad figure on the sideline by himself. The only real extended conversation he had was with Bobby Wagner. And just food for thought, Bobby Wagner represents himself when he does negotiations. They had a good 25-minute conversation, and that was the only time you really saw him express anything. He was almost there, like he was there to check a box, like, I'm here, this is where I'm supposed to be, I'm an active player on the roster, I should be here, there's a game going on. But there wasn't any interactions with anybody else. If he could have sunk into the ground, he would have. I think the isolation from the team that he's created is going to wear down on him. Now, I don't think he needs to do the gravitas of, I can ruin the season, but his teammates are sick and tired of it, because they don't want to deal with it, because they know what they have. And when I went back to that first question that Kyle asked me about Brandon Coleman, and I asked Quinn about this, it was the culture of those guys that are like, I could sit out, but I want to play because I need to get this. I need to be ready. And even Quinn mentioned that there's guys I have to stop from playing. Like I literally have to know for your good, you're not going to play. When you have all of that going on, and then you have this one guy who's doing this, just seems it's rubbing people the wrong way. But I do expect him to play against the Giants. He doesn't have a choice, really. I mean, if you start sitting out games, that's a big deal, and they don't have to do anything. Like all the powers in the team hands. Now, does the offense need him out there? Absolutely. You need your best play wide receiver out there. No doubts about it. But he's got to come to grips. Him and his agent have to come to grips with where he stands. Like the wide receiver tag this year is $25 million. He's making 24. Next year is 28 million. He's asking for 30, north of 30. So they could franchise you and you would make less money than you're asking for. You franchise you again, it's going to be 29.5. That's less than what you're asking for. So there's nothing left. Like there's no magic formula of, oh yeah, he could, the franchise tag is going to be 40 million. Yes, if you're a quarterback, but not as if you're a receiver. So I think he'll be out there, but it's not going to change until him and his agent change. They're the only two people that are going to affect this change because the Washington front office is not going to change. They're not going to cave in. There's nothing for them to cave in for.
I'm with it. The only thing I would rebuttal with is him nursing his injury right now. That they could withhold him if they needed to week 1 in order because like you said, Brandon Coleman needs to work. Jordan McGee needs to work after not playing for a while. They could realistically say, is it the best case scenario for everybody involved that we just thrust Terry out there week 1? And possibly that's when we get into the scenario of him withholding himself that they have to push this thing along. But that being said, Felix, to wrap this up, only a couple more questions for you. What would you say that, I know you talked about the D-line and the depth of the D-line. What would you say the strengths of the team are, not including Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, that's pretty withstanding. Yeah. I think defensive line for sure, cornerback for sure, running back because I do believe they're really good. There are a lot of good guys there. Now there's no Saquon Barkley's or Bijan Robinsons, but there are a lot of good guys there. So I think that is where they're strongest, and that they're going to be. There's defensive line by far. I think it's the strongest thing on the team. Secondary is right behind it. And I would put running back in that group too. I think tight ends are a good group. That's going to be a good 4 that they have that are going to be really solid. But I would go in those areas. Well, but D line for sure, absolutely for sure. And the offensive line has gotten better, but there's going to be a depth issue once you get past like the 6th or 7th guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to hit on the offensive line. Speaking of that, what's your feel for Sam Cosmi? You think that he's going to start off on PUP, or you actually think he's going to be able to be out there active for the week 1? But maybe he doesn't play week 1, but maybe they put him on the active roster, thinking that he can play on week 2 or week 3? Or do you think he sits out the first 4 games and is back in October?
That possible roster spot is going to be very valuable if he can't go right away.
Right. So, like for me. Originally, I had said the Bears game. What was that? Columbus Day or something?
Let me look it up for
you. It's like week 5 or something like that.
It's like week 5. Now, after seeing him work out, after seeing him work out, I'm a lot closer. Now, I do not think he will make week 1. I think the best scenario is they have him on the roster. He doesn't play week 1 against New York, and he doesn't play the short week against Green Bay. Then there's a 10-day layoff before the Raiders. I think you see him against the Raiders.
Okay.
Because that gives you essentially a month from the day. I think that Raiders game is right around my birthday. I think the 21st. So that's essentially about a month from the day where you get him fully there, and then he gets some practice in with that extended little short mini bye. I think that's where you see Cosmi. So I don't think you see him week 1. And he won't play on the short week going to Green Bay. But then with the Raiders, I think he'll be there. And I think he's really close. He looks really good. Like, you would not have known that guy hurt himself in Detroit 7 months ago. Because I'm thinking of that because in my mind initially I was like, we may not see him all of the year. And then it was like, okay, maybe you see him November. But the fact that it's even a discussion topic, August 23rd or whatever today is, or 25th, is pretty amazing from his perspective. So my guess would be the Raiders week 3, off that short mini bye.
Absolutely. The next question for you. The rookie class. Obviously, this is just preseason. We talked about it, but we got to see a lot of the rookie class. Obviously, Trey Amos did not play in week 2, but he did in week 1 and week 3. Week 1 was a fantastic showing from Trey Amos. But in totality, what did you think of the rookie class, Felix, so far?
I like it. And Amos is a guy, like, I'm really excited for people to see Amos. And he played yesterday, but the Ravens didn't throw the ball. So you didn't get to see anything. Amos can play. So I'm really I think that was a very good pick on Washington's part. Um yeah, I mean, Bill's going to be a lot. Jalen Lane is by far the fourth receiver on this team,
Thank you.
and that is already it's a gap. So you have Terry, of course, Debo, Noah Brown, Jalen Lane. Then there's the drop to where you get to like McCaffrey and others there. But Lane is clearly in that 4 slot, and they have plans for him to utilize him. So I think that pick is going to be very good. So I think the draft cast overall, and we saw Kane. We got to see Kane play a bit, and he's a raw linebacker just in the game of Jordan McGee. He's going to be on here. He's going to learn because even when he made a mistake Monday night, he got to the play and made a play. You're like, oh, okay. Now the technique was wrong. He dropped the wrong way, but then he made the tackle and it's 3 yards. So like there's ability there. And when he played next to Luvu, which we gotta look at it from that. If they're playing with all threes, they're not gonna look as good as if they're playing with the ones. And you're surrounding yourself with the best talent and they're out there. Because Monday night, Kane made a lot of plays with that first team defense because he's lined up next to Luvu. He's got Kinlaw and Payne in front of him. So there's a lot of good things there. So the draft class overall was what they were needed. Washington is still going to need another 2 classes because I think that is what the preseason proved more than anything.
Yeah.
The Ravens, as a franchise, have been drafting well for years. So you saw those guys that have been in the Ravens system 3, 4, 5 years playing at those second strings, those third strings. So you didn't see much drop off. Washington has a very good top end talent team. Then after that top talent, that's the glaring hole where you have those years of the previous regime where the roster is extremely thin. I think I said it last night on another podcast. There's like 6 players left that Ron Rivera drafted on this roster, and I think that's me including Cosme, who I'm back and forth on if he's on the initial 53.
I got you.
You're talking. I counted them out: Chris Paul, Cosme. Trying to look at my list. Bates, Quan, Percy,
Chris Rodriguez.
That was the 6th. That was the 6th.
Crazy turnover.
You don't realize it until you say it, but that's the 6 guys from the 4 years of the previous regime. That's not good in the NFL. Like, that is just not good. And I think that's what the preseason showed more than anything else. That Washington has accumulated a lot of top end talent, but there's a layering gap in depth. And that's where those good franchises just keep rolling. Kansas City just has player after player after player after player. Philly has player after player after player after player. Even Dallas has player after player after player after player. They have a lot of stocked young talent. Washington does not, and that's just because of the bad regime. So this is a good draft class. It's going to fill some needs to help them win now, but they're going to have another one of just depth filling and another one of just depth filling just to make the roster whole again.
Yeah, dude, to this day, I still think that Rivera was doing that on purpose. Like, that's the only way that I can,
it. 6 guys? Yeah. That's insane.
It is insane.
This is supposed to be the heart of your roster. Are those guys 25 to 29?
Yeah.
And there's 6 of them on the roster.
Yeah, he circled Jaden Daniels' name back in like 2022, apparently. But it was funny. I had a Cowboys fan tell me Ja'Cory Brooks was the 4th wide receiver on the roster. It wasn't until I looked at his profile, and I was like, oh, that's why. But my son, I put this on Twitter yesterday, Felix. My son, I was telling him about, we were watching the game. He goes, so the Commanders are playing the Raisins? And, I couldn't stop thinking about it, and it was genius because we have never thought of that word for the Ravens before. But raisins is a good way to do
That's
it.
good.
But last one I have for you, Felix, unsung hero of the season.
This is a good question, and I haven't put that to thought. I want to Will Harris.
That's a good one.
That role, and Jeremy Chan played that role very effectively last year. Will Harris is a better cover guy than Jeremy Chin was.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna see some tight ends in this schedule. Bowers comes week 3. Like there's gonna be some tight ends on the schedule. If Will Harris can play that role anywhere near Jeremy Chin, just being the physicality, he's very physical and he can cover that tight end. This defense is going to go places because it allows Mikey to roam inside, pick up the slot receiver. That's why everyone kept hearing Mikey's making all these interceptions at camp because he's closer to the middle of the field. He can be near the ball. That I think Will Harris would be that because he's not going to get the publicity that Amos and Lattimore will get, or Mikey will get, or the linebackers, or any of that. But for that defense to work the way that Joe Witt wants it, Will Harris has to be that guy. So I would go with Will Harris as one, and the other one would have to be Austin Eckler. Now that you do not have Brian Robinson, he's that veteran. He's going to have to be effective and stay healthy and give you 10 touchdowns in various combinations. Rushing, receiving, maybe a kick return here and there. He's got to get you 10. If he gets you 10, the offense is rolling. And I do not expect the offense to slow down this year.
My man, love to hear that. I would have loved to hear John Bates. I've been advocating for them to use him as a fullback on run plays at times. You can even use him out of the backfield and receiving, of course, as fullbacks do. But that guy's a freaking tank, man, and so lucky to have him.
He's very underrated, and I'll say this: Washington's going to play a lot more 12 personnel with Debo and Terry or another receiver and one running back. And it's going to make the defenses have to make a choice. Yep. Do I want to load up to stop the run because they can run behind Bates as a lead blocker?
Yep.
Or do I want to play it as a pass down and we run down your throat? And if you want to load up for the run, now you have Debo running jet sweeps. You have Zach Ertz. You have Ben Sinnott who's catching the ball well, and Bates can catch the ball. And I haven't even whoever the running backs lined up, and I haven't even mentioned number 5.
Yeah.
So there's going to be so many things that this team will do out of 12 personnel, which is going to include those tight ends, which that's the easiest group I ever have to pick. But they all have specific roles, and I think Sennett's going to be used more, and Bates will be utilized this year.
Absolutely. And the wide receivers, if they can beat their one-on-one matchups, they can have a very, very good year, Felix. And I can't thank you enough for joining us on this Sunday, sir. It's fantastic to hear from you. If you just like to plug your social media handle, just in case anyone watching hasn't followed you yet, brother.
Oh, yeah. B Commander 2407, Bless Commander on Instagram. Follow me there. Catch all my work there.
My man. Felix, have a great Sunday, brother.
Sir, appreciate it.
Always love chatting with you, fellas.
Thank you, man. Bye.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Felix Trammell. That was a lot, because he wasn't gonna elaborate on the Brian Robinson situation, but
I was hoping he was gonna drop a soundbite. I was like waiting for it. I was like, do it.
No, he wasn't gonna do it. That's what my feeling was. This wasn't a long time coming type thing. Something obviously changed, and in a professional setting, you kind of see these things happen. Especially in our line of work, where somebody just does something stupid. In recent in our professional, Gene told me about the barbecue mishap between him and Pat.
Yeah. That man is still talking about that. I'm like, no, that was like a month ago. Why are you still talking about this?
John told us about it, and I was like, what? I was like, Gene never told me about that.
Right, this man came up to me literally like just this week and was like, because I was helping him carry like a box of wire to his car, and he was just like, yeah, man, like. He started talking about Pat, and I was like, yeah, I know. I was there. Like, yeah, he was like, I would have beat his ass. He's like, yeah, I still got to have a talk with him, like sit down with him one-on-one. And I was just like,
oh, yeah. One thing you know about my
uncle,
let it go. My uncle Gene, former boxer, still like at 60, is still looking to fight people. Pat, in his late 20s, had too many beers to drink, and Gene walked over and was trying to scrap with him, and John saved the day for Pat because Pat would not have lived that down if that actually did happen. But we were joking with Gene that Pat was going to beat him up. He's like, yeah.
It's funny. He was like, I mean, I don't know. He seems like a little scrappy kid. He might beat my ass, but I guarantee you, I would hit him a couple times. Like he'd go down. He's like, who do you think would win? I'm like, come on, man. Like, why you gonna have me answer this question? Like, I don't know.
Humble Gene, which is not something you expected. But to wrap this up, we have a lot of fan questions that were submitted because obviously everyone has a lot of questions based on how this preseason went, and I could totally understand why. But somebody on Twitter brought up a great point, a fantastic point, that like back in the day during our Super Bowl years for the Washington Redskins, they would do poorly in the preseason, and in the regular season they really kicked off. And I think what we do have to take a sit back and realize is a lot of these teams that we were going up against were playing their second starter at their second string at quarterback. Washington didn't have that once in these preseason. And so as much as we want to get on them, especially the defense for allowing the things to happen, it's almost reminiscent of what we went through before last season for the past like 5 years, where it was like that we were bludgeoning the defense for giving up points, but the offense wasn't helping them out at all. They weren't drawing out drives. They weren't really capitalizing with 7 points. You know, you were happy to walk away with the field goal because you're actually able to walk away with something, right? But that being said, I think we do have to take that into consideration that it wasn't like we were playing with a full deck. And
Yeah, and a lot of these teams were playing their starters a lot longer than we were actually playing our starters or even our second string guys. So
and what makes
obviously it's going to look worse than, I mean, look, obviously their third string, like Felix talked about, their depth guys just spanked our depth guys. But whenever we had our initial like guys that are going to be playing on Sundays or whatever, things didn't look as bad as it did like later on in those games.
yeah, and it wasn't like we were playing. I hate to say it, it wasn't like we were actually playing to win, but it was like
Right.
we were playing to get reps, aka with Brandon Coleman being out there, Jordan McGee being out there, of course, alongside Kane
Play to
Madrano.
win the game.
I understand, but it is preseason. Now, and I also wanted to say, I think a lot of the reason that our starters didn't get a lot of reps is because in the second week of the season we have that Thursday night football game. It's a quick turnaround. You don't want to give them a huge plate of food an hour before Thanksgiving. You know, you want to be able to finish the plate on Thanksgiving. You don't want to get huge breakfast right before you're heading out for Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? And that's what I kind of see with this is there was a very tiny plate, very tiny plate. Now, this question from the Colonel Hall. Am I the only one that is semi-concerned about our kicking game? Gay is supposed to be an asset, not a liability. Will there be a kicking competition?
I don't think they would be doing themselves any favors if they didn't. I mean, I'm not gonna say a competition, but because it's kind of too close to the season at this point. But I would say that at some point, like obviously you're not the only one that's concerned. A lot of people are concerned. I feel like since we let go of Dustin Hopkins, it's just been a rotation of kickers week in and week out. But yeah, I think they still have confidence in Matt Gay going into the season, but come week 1, week 2, he starts missing kicks here and there, or he's making games closer than they should be because he's missing kicks. I do think that before that week 3, week 4 game, that they'll start bringing in guys to take a look at some guys, maybe bring some competition in. But as of right now, I think they still have a little bit of confidence in him, but that can turn really quickly come week 1 or week 2.
Yeah, I think Matt Gay was very distracted by the cheerleaders in Minnesota and New England. No, but yes, obviously we are concerned by it because especially this season with the rougher, tougher schedule, you are concerned about not being able to have stability with getting points. And I know a lot of people have said this on Twitter, like, oh, will we ever have consistency out of the kicking position? Look, I got it. I'm with you. I understand that. But I tell you this from the bottom of my heart. I would rather have issues at kicker than not have stability at the quarterback position. That is number one for me. We had the stability at quarterback. I know that we can always get better. I totally get it. But I just feel like in life, when you have stability at one thing, you're going to have a drop off in another. and we basically exchange the quarterback consistency with kicker. And I'm okay with that. Like, as much as we want to complain about it, I understand if you homophobes out there want to get on Matt Gay. I get it. But I'm not going to be on board because I'm with the young man. I think that he'll be able to come through for us when we need it. All right? I get it. But I'm just saying, give some respect to my boy. All right? Don't make fun of him because of his name. It's not cool. Now, the next question from the Colonel. Please conversate about Marcus Mariota. We haven't seen anything from him this season. And Sam Hartman and Josh Johnson have been wholly uninspiring. What happens to our team if JD5 is nicked up? I'll start this one off. Mark, like, we've known about this coaching staff, especially Dan Quinn. They like to be very precautious when it comes to injuries. Like, they do not want to stress it, right? And I think Terry McLaurin is a fantastic example of this. They don't want to stress it. They don't want you to be they'll mortgage a month in order to stop from having 3 to 4 months be an issue, right? Like, they want to make sure you're there for regular season games. And so I think with Marcus Mariota, that's essentially what they were doing, and being able to help and say that we want to make sure that he is 100% full healthy week 1. And I said this a couple weeks ago. If week 1 was today, I think Marcus Mariota would play. But they're just being healthy with it. As much as we were all ripping our hair out at the quarterback play, I think that there was a good reason for that. And that's to make sure that your top 2 are good to go, ready to go week 1. And I'm content with that. I'm not very surprised with Sam Hartman. And I feel bad for Sam because everyone is hopping on, like, really getting on him. He just had that surgery, and it's obvious that surgery did affect him in some manner. But it wasn't just the arm strength. It wasn't him not having zip on the ball. He was making bad decisions. And he did it last week by throwing late inside to the outside. You don't do that. You don't. If you're going to throw outside, you throw early before that wide receiver plants his cut to go outside. He was throwing it well after the plant, and when the cornerback was on his back, dang near catching that football. So, like, there's obviously a disconnect with Sam in the sense of what to do when. It just, even though, like, I guess his brain is moving as fast as his footballs are. It's just not going at a fast pace at this moment. But I was legitimately shocked with Josh Johnson. I was expecting much better play out of Josh Johnson, to be perfectly honest with you. Look, and there was a rise in production when Josh Johnson got in there, but I was expecting, like, quarterback 2 type play from Josh Johnson, to be perfectly honest with you. And I will give him the benefit of the doubt of wide receivers not being able to catch the footballs at times.
Yeah, and you can kind of somewhat give that benefit of the doubt to Sam Hartman.
Yeah.
Even going back to that Patriots game, like, yeah, he was pretty bad, but he had, I think, 2 or 3 drops that were, like, literally just in the breadbasket, including one of them being a touchdown. That was, like, he dropped a dime to, I want to say it was either Chris Moore or KJ Osborne, one of those 2 guys. But
it was KJ.
Yeah, so
it was a good play by the DB too. We do have to give that.
Right, of course. But the old tail goes. It touches your hand, you gotta grab that. But at the end of the day, like you said, this coaching staff, this whole regime is really cautious when it comes to injuries, especially with a guy that's a little longer in the tooth, if you want to call Marcus Mariota that, and it's an Achilles type of agitation or whatever. So you got to be extra cautious with that because, as we know, Achilles injuries are. He's pretty much gonna. I think he would retire if he tore his Achilles at that point because he's just at that age where it's going to be even harder to kind of rehab back from it and whatnot. And he's not even like an actual starter at this point in his career. He's just a backup guy. So I could definitely see why they were precautious with him. I don't even think he would have played a lot in the preseason, to be honest with you, because outside of maybe to get Jalen Lane or Osborne of those guys better looks and better reps with the in the passing game with the offense, but I still think he would have had maybe a series or 2, if that, throughout the preseason. And it would all would have been Hartman and Johnson anyway. And I mean, look, if we have to go to the third quarterback any time in this season, the season's probably cooked anyway. So I'm not really that worried about Sam Hartman and Josh Johnson. I would say that, kind of like you, I did expect a little bit better play out of Josh Johnson just because he's been in the league for so long. He's been bouncing around the league for 10 plus years at this point, played on more than half the leagues in the team, or half the teams in the league. But I mean, there's a reason why he's always bouncing around. There's a reason why he's always available. So it is what it is. But like I said, if we get down to the third quarterback at any point in this season, or the practice squad quarterback, season's probably cooked anyway. So I'm not really that worried about them.
Yeah. Next question from the Colonel. We got to go rapid fire here. My head's spinning about the B-Rob trade. Our starting running back is gone for a future 6th-round pick. Were the other backs really that impressive? I watched all 3 preseason games and didn't see the next Saquon Barkley or Bijan Robinson. Was there more to this trade we don't know about? Was there a falling out? And I think Felix kind of answered that second part.
Right, yeah. Felix kind of answered that second part. But as far as like the next Saquon or Bijan or guys like that, I mean, those guys are a dime a dozen at this point. Like, that's why they're the tier 1 upper echelon guys in the league. And it's hard to come by those guys for the most part. And we see teams throughout the league all the time find hidden gems of running backs in the 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, undrafted, whatever it might be. It's just one of those positions where they just kind of turn and churn you throughout the league. As we know, we talked about Brian Robinson going to the last year of his contract, so I can see like the thought process of, like you said, running back by committee. We've seen nice promise out of Bill. We've seen C-Rod, and yeah, if they're gonna not re-sign B-Rob next year, you might as well try to flip him, get something for him, especially when you're a little skim on the draft picks next year. So I didn't have a problem with the trade.
Yeah, somebody asked us this not too long ago, and I said, yeah, you explore the trade options for B-Rob. You know, I was expecting you to be on that train too, and you weren't, which is very surprising to me. But
Yeah, only because I still thought at that point in time there was like a role for him on this offense, because like he's the first down, second down back, and then you kind of ease Bill like along the way, and then eventually it becomes his job. But I guess they saw enough, and I guess Brian Robinson was kind of, if I'm just reading the tea leaves, I think he was kind of salty that they were getting Bill and C-Rob more reps than him, and here's where we are now.
yes, sir, I agree. And the one thing I will comment on the Colonel's question, you shouldn't be trying to look for the next Saquon or Bijan Robinson. Just like a lot of people in our fan base that complain about Terry McLaurin and saying CeeDee Lamb and talking about Malik Neighbors. Like, I get it, but do you see a top 5 wide receiver hanging around for Washington to go grab? No, he's a 3rd rounder that is really outproduced and really measured up to a lot of those guys. And if you have one of those draft picks laying around for us to go and pick up, please let us know. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get talent like that. So I can't stand that argument. But basically, instead of looking at it saying we don't have the next Saquon or Bijan, the question is, do we have the next Alfred Morris? Do we have the next Liddell Betts type of guy that could come in and really just do something well with the football and help this team win football games? Because the last thing you need is a guy on the sideline constantly telling you he needs the ball more, and then when he does get the ball, he's not doing much with it, and like that just creates a problem in itself. Like, you keep telling me to give you the ball, but then nothing's happened with it. How about you sit down and shut up and just appreciate whatever's given to you?
See, I knew there was something going on going back to last year when that clip started circulating about when Zach Ertz was mic'd up and that's the B-Rob I like, that's the B I like. We got to feed me the ball. Da, 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 da. It's like, bro, we tried to feed you the ball. You wasn't doing nothing with it. So,
motherfucker, shut up. Let's go sit down. Shut up. You know what I'm saying? Now let's go to our next question. This one was by James Bonato on Instagram. Quote, your reputation precedes you, unquote. Surely football is what can you do for me now and in future business. But seeing both sides, I see Terry's past regarding performance and attitude should carry a bit of weight. You could flip the argument and say any poor player's performance, which means nothing, because what can they do for you in the future? Imagine if we applied that to Albert Hainsworth. It doesn't work. Where would you draw the line for both Terry and management in regards to reputation?
You can answer that one first. I gotta think about it.
Come on, man. Why you gotta do that to me? Look, Terry's my boy, okay? I will never say anything bad about that man. Never. All I'll say is that look he had at Adam Peters at training camp, I've seen that look before. I had it. Him sitting on the sideline, isolating himself. You could say, others will say those are just video grabs from media. I get it. I also get that because you didn't have it for all 3 hours. You don't know exactly what was going down, right? But I'll also say I've been there before too, where you're just pissed off at the overall situation. It's not like you're pissed off at your teammates, but you're more pissed off at the situation that you're in, and it forces you to kind of isolate yourself because you're like showing that I don't like what this is. Where do I draw the line? I really don't with Terry, because with Terry, I think he deserves the raise. I'm not going to sit here and say he doesn't. And I know Felix says he's getting paid 24. I'm pretty sure he's getting paid 19. And that's probably the big discrepancy that's being said about Terry. Is
Well,
it's not,
I think it was 24 with all like the roster bonuses, the off-season workout stuff, da 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 da. But since he started missing mini camps and getting like missing training camps and whatnot, that's why I think it kind of like got reduced down to like 19 or 20, whatever the actual number is. But yeah,
right. And what I would say is that franchise tag that's supposed to be going on for next year is probably what you should be offering. Because I'm not going to sit here and tell Terry that he should go out in the field and possibly risk injury without much guaranteed money. I wouldn't tell anybody to do that. I want, because of what you did last year and what you can do with this offense, which they very much believe in and know, we know that because how much they want him. We know that he has that leverage. You want to guarantee it for him, because you don't want him going out in the field looking towards the future and trying to preserve himself. That puts everybody behind. And this is what I've been screaming about for the past month or two, and I'm tired of it by now, James. I appreciate the question. I'm sorry. But I put blame on both sides. We need to get to the middle. And I understand that these pressurized kind of situations feed into helping these sort of scenarios. But at some point, this needs to stop being an ego grab ass type of thing. Let's just find a way to get you on the field, man. That's all I want to do. And I don't want to mortgage my future over it, of course. But this is the time to do it. You're on a rookie deal with the quarterback. What big money guys are you paying right now? You're not. What are we doing? So ultimately, I love Terry to death, but I do put some blame on him in this situation. I know everyone's complaining about the elf and Buddy Baker, but I'm not gonna make fun of him. All right, Terry's standing by his guy, and I understand it. Now the next question that we have, this one was submitted on Twitter. We have 2 on Twitter. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really lacking right now. Terry got me all in sorts. From Tony Franchise, with cuts coming Tuesday, who do you think are some surprise cut candidates?
surprise cut candidates. It's kind of hard because we kind of like know the roster is pretty much like locked in, and they're just like maybe 3, 4, 5 maybe spots on the back end of the roster, and then obviously the practice squad guys. But surprise cut. I know everyone's like, oh, Luke McCaffrey, da, 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 but they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna cut Luke right now at this point in time. I think they're gonna give him one more year, and maybe next offseason if he's still not reaching to the levels of what they think he can put on the field, and then maybe next year. But ooh, surprise cut. I don't know.
That's
It's
the
kind of
question, because there is no surprise
yeah. So I'm
cut.
saying I don't think there is a surprise cut because the roster is pretty much already kind of in place. They brought a lot of the people back from last year. There's the guys that they obviously drafted, and the guys that have been here prior to this regime coming here. So it's like, and then they got the guys that they brought in free agency. Though obviously they're going to make the roster. So, I mean, I'll say just off randomly, I'll say Chris Paul because
D-Rob.
but yeah, but even then, like I don't think Chris Paul is going to be a surprise cut because the offensive line depth is so thin at this point. They kind of need to stash him on the practice squad just in case. So I honestly really don't see like a surprise this upcoming year, which is actually a good thing for a roster that's been turned over so quickly.
Yeah, I honestly don't have one for you. I know everyone's going to say Luke McCaffrey, among others.
Ben
I
Simmons, but like I think Ben Simmons stays around too.
Yeah, like I couldn't really tell you a surprise cut at this point, because anybody that would be cut is most likely at this point, because our roster is very top heavy, and you know the backups and everything, so it's hard to be able to see who would be being let go. Like Andrew Wiley, they still have a very big necessity for Andrew Wiley, in my personal opinion. I know Chris Paul has done very well at the interior and exterior, but just saying that even that would be a surprise in itself. So if anything, I'll say Andrew Wiley, and I don't want to say that, or I don't want to say Tyler Owens either, because I think Tyler Owens is fantastic. He played very well in these preseason games. But if you have a gun to my head and making me pick one, I'll probably say Tyler Owens or
I saw someone say Noah I could be a surprise cut, but even then, I'm like, that's not going to happen either because the cornerback depth, like he's
Yeah.
still in that rotation of cornerbacks. Like,
Yes.
yeah, I know he was getting kind of worked in the preseason, but at the end of the day, I think they liked what they saw at him last year, and I think they can build on what he did last year in the system again.
Now the next question, thank you very much, Tony. Appreciate it. This one is from Mike Commandees Nuts. Am I wrong for feeling this way, Hall, after rewatching Terry's pregame playoff speech last season? To me, it seems like there was a bunch of hot air, as I'm witnessing how he hasn't participated in anything team-related since May, right? Team first until it comes to getting paid, right? And what he's talking about is this.
You talking about before the Detroit game?
No reason to be fearful, no reason to have anxiety, because everything you need is inside you. You live a great life. But listen here, when this money gone, when this fame gone, the only thing you really got is your name and your reputation. What they gonna say about your name? What they gonna say about your reputation? What they gonna say when they turn that film on? I know what they gonna say about me. I'm gonna ride out. They gonna say we some dogs, man. Let's get it.
I understand what he's saying. All right. Let me defend my boy. Like I said, not much guaranteed money this year. He's 30. I wouldn't want him going out there anyway, in my personal opinion. I know that people have said, well, he should be out there with the team, getting ready for the season and everything. I get it. But what happens if he gets injured, dude? Like, what happens? Like, what do you say to Terry then? Sorry, man, it's football. Like, it's all gone now.
The guys can take out insurance policies and whatnot, but
No.
Yeah, you can.
No. But not like this. Whereas, like, this is big, big money that he could be making and to insure the next couple of years. And that's essentially what the contract is an insurance policy in case that were to happen. And that's why I understand it. And that's why I understand saying what he's saying before. Playoff game is vastly different than a contract negotiation, though, Mike. Coming into his last year's contract without much guarantee money.
Yeah, I don't think he's blowing like hot air. Like I get what you're saying as far as like he's always represented himself as like a team first guy, and like you heard it right there. He's loyal to his guys, and he's like I said, team first, Mr. Commander. Da 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 da. So I can see where people are coming from the angle of, well, you said you were this, that, and the third, but now you're portraying yourself as like the diva, typical NFL wide receiver when you've never been that for the last 6 years. So I can see where it's coming from, why people would say that, but I don't think it's blowing smoke. I just think that, I mean, everything was going good last year. So like you said, it's a contract negotiation. It's not like them actually stepping onto the field. And I think his beef is with the front office, not the people in the locker room, not the coaching staff. So at the end of the day, like, I think Terry he's just hurt. Like, I didn't know he was this sensitive, I guess, but I just think he's like legitly hurt. But as far as like, I just think we all like monetary wise, I think we all we saw the DK Metcalf deal and we just always thought like, oh, okay, well, he's like, just copy that deal and get that to Terry because Terry's better than DK. But I think we all overestimated that money wise, how the league actually looks at 30+ old wide receivers, because guys like Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, all those guys, Mike Evans, Courtland Sutton, all their contracts go from 22, 23 million to 30 million, with Tyreek Hill being at the top of 30 million, Devontae Adams right under him at 28. You could say that Terry's not on the level of Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill. So, but at the end of the day, like you said, I put it on both sides. Both sides should have just put their ego to the side, put their pride to the side at this point, sat down at the table, met somewhere in the middle, and hammered this out. And I just think that, I mean, I'm pretty sure he'll be there week one, we talked about where do you draw the line at? I draw the line at when you start missing games and you're actually hurting the team in the regular season. That's where I draw the line of, all right, now you're kind of hurting your reputation.
Well, no shit. I would put. Sorry for the cursing, but I'm just saying this is where I've been putting on Adam Peters.
Yeah,
Like
but
it
you can't just
shouldn't
all
get.
put it on AP though, because even
Yes, you
John Kime and those
can.
guys,
Yes, you can.
John Kime has already come out and said that the team is probably willing to offer up to 28, but it'll be on Terry's camp to accept that. So if they don't accept that, like, how can you put that on AP?
Because AP is the leader in the room into getting it to come down to that number. Like, and being able to voice it to Terry. I do not want you to miss games. This team needs you. I need you. I need you down at this number. I can't go north of that for long term, right? And I wholeheartedly put that because the whole process of this, they've been acting as if they don't need Terry. And let's be honest about it. A lot of people on Twitter have taken that stance. Well, Terry got shut down a couple games last season, but they don't really need him. Why would you pay him all that money? No, MFer. Or do you really want to play that game? Because they need him. They need him. If you haven't witnessed it already in these preseason games, they need him. And so let's stop acting that way because other people have said you don't bow down to it. You don't bow down to the player and allow them to get theirs. I wholeheartedly get it. I would take that stance if Luke McCaffrey had showcased himself as a true wide receiver too. Then they could go into the season to say, we're very equipped with Debo, with Noah, and Luke. We're good to go.
You can't even say that though, because you got guys like Debo, Tunsil, Lattimore, whoever it may be, looking at this and being like, okay, well, if Terry sat out and pouted and did this and threw a temper tantrum, I'm gonna do the same thing because eventually I know AP is gonna come down and bow down to me just like he did to Terry. So you can't really set that precedent. But I get what you're saying as far as like
that's my point is that it
AP
shouldn't have even gotten to
be an
this
adult.
point then.
Someone needs to be the adult in the
You know
room
what I
and just be
mean?
like, look,
Yes.
sit down. And right now I just feel like no one's being the adult in the room. And I just feel like, even I said this on Twitter, I feel like at this point in time, because Terry's so prideful and he's like feels so hurt and feels like I know my value, like he said in Eastern Motors. Even if the team offered him 28, I don't even think he would take that at this point because he's like, I know my worth, So that's why I'm like, I put it on both sides, and both sides equally share blame in this. But I just want the reports to come out to be like, hey, we're offering him this number, and then we can all just be like, okay, now we can not even pick a side, but now we can actually sort through all the BS of like this report, that report, offer this, rumor. I just want to know what the team is offering, and then what's the max that they're offering, and is Terry's camp just so dug in they're just like, nope, we're not taking it unless it's 30 plus. That's all I want to know, because this is really getting annoying, like you said. Like, just end this saga, please.
I get it. I totally do. Then my point being is that this is the leader in the room. You take control of it. It's time to whip your meat out and put it on the table. You know what I mean? And so as long as this progresses, I do put blame on both of them wholeheartedly. But this has been my point all along. Terry possibly sitting out week 1 is nothing against Terry. And if you're going to say it is on Terry at being able to withhold it from the team and screwing over the team, that's Terry's leverage. And they're acting as if he has no leverage. It should not get to that point.
But the thing is, though, that's not really, he doesn't have the leverage, because the team can still just be like, well, you got to show up at some point anyway to accrue the season. So we still don't have to raise up our price.
But I will say this. The team threw him a bone with the injury designation.
Yeah, because they didn't want to keep finding them and taking money from him.
And then he could possibly sit out games without losing that game check. And that's what I'll say is they did him a solid that way, and I hope that he does them a solid by coming down a number.
Him off PUP, then.
But Dan Quinn is still saying he's rehabbing.
I mean, he has to say that. He's not going to throw Terry.
I know. That's why Dan Quinn's the best. But hold on.
I heard someone break it down. Like, I can't remember exactly how they did it, but basically, like, it can get to the point where.
Hold on. Can I ask this question
first? The team can
first?
basically go to Terry and be like, we know that this is not a real injury. And then that's when it gets extra messy, because now they're like, no, like, we're going to start finding you type thing or whatever.
I got you. I need you to answer this question. I got to open the garage for Katie and the kids.
Yeah.
So I'm going to mute myself after I ask you this question. This is from Chris Comerton. Did the first preseason game make you guys second guess the quality of depth on the team? And how confident are you that DQ and company will get the team back on track by the Bengals game? And then he said, substitute game 1 with game 3.
We talked about this a little bit already. I think the past couple years of not drafting well, obviously, and only having 6 people left on the roster from the 3 to 4 years of the Ron Rivera era is definitely damage the depth of this team as a whole. And yeah, I mean, we've talked about this like with Felix also that yes, like they're really top heavy. They have really good starting and rotational guys, but the drop off kind of comes after those rotational guys. So, like Felix said, I do think it's going to take another like year or two for them to actually restock the cupboard and get that young core, ascending core of like players that are here for their second contracts or whatnot. So, um, it does kind of scare me a little bit because we can't really. The margin for error this year is even less than it was last year, just due to the schedule and whatnot. So, yeah, the depth is definitely a thing that you should worry about. But I do think that I have complete faith that AP and the front office are going to restock the cupboard over the next couple of years to get this team depth back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. They are gonna. The depth is an obvious thing, of course, but I think that's on any football team, especially when you're starting from scratch. It's going to be difficult to be able to do so. Now, the next question we have, this one was submitted by Deluxe in the Discord. Sorry, we had a lot of questions today. Are any wide receivers not named Terry, Debo, Noah, Lane, or McCaffrey in any danger of being claimed? Does the team keep more than 5 on the initial 53? And do we see a Noah type signing this year? I do think Ja'Cory Brooks has the ability to get swiped up. I think Ja'Cory Brooks has shown enough. I also believe that Tay Martin has shown flashes at being able to be scooped up somewhere, especially just to be able to put in the back end of a roster. Obviously, if they are claimed, they have to be added to the roster. I think if you make it to the practice squad, I think those two are ones that you'd probably feel comfortable with if somebody's lacking in depth. Hi, sweetie.
Yeah, I would say maybe a guy like KJ Osborne maybe gets a. I don't even think he's going to get on our practice squad, but maybe he does. But I do think a guy like KJ Osborne maybe has the potential to get swept up by another team, like maybe like the 49ers or maybe a team that's lacking a wide receiver depth overall due to injuries, whatever it may be. Just because he's a veteran, he's been around the league for a while, and a team might want just to add like a veteran to their team to their roster just for safety reasons. But yeah, I do think that I think Ja'Cory Brooks is probably a guy also that might get swept up just because he showed a little bit of potential throughout the preseason.
Yeah, I totally. Bye, Corey. I love you. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Now the next question that we have, this one was submitted in the Discord. Bye, Corey. Love you too, baby. This question was submitted on the Discord. I'm sorry, all over the place. From Deluxe. Bill, does he go on short-term IR with the shoulder? If not, is he active week 1? Tough to keep 4 running backs active on game day. Does he contribute enough on special teams to be active early? I think he will be active week 1. I don't have.
I think he'll be active. I think that possibly all 4 of those guys might be active just because I know Jeremy McNichols plays a lot of special teams. But yeah, I think the running back room is going to be, like you said, committee. I think it's going to be Bill, C-Rod, and Eckler. But I do think that Eckler is going to be used as kind of the change of pace type of guy. I think C-Rod and Bill are going to be the guys carrying the load.
Yep.
And it'll be Eckler and maybe McNichols as the change of pace guys.
Yeah, I'm right there with you in that term. We are on the same page, unlike the Terry situation. I totally agree with you in that sense. That should wrap us up for this episode, boys. I think Tim Towner had one, and I'm trying to find it. But unfortunately, I cannot find it. So I'm sorry, Tim. I will use it on the next episode, I promise, because I just cannot find it right now. All right, everybody. We will see you again next week. Pads are getting put on tomorrow for the football team that I'm helping coach. Trying to get out there because I had to do like the background check, tuberculosis test, and all that, which was insane, by the way. Because like apparently when you get a tuberculosis test, they gotta inject you with it and then wait 2 days to check to see if it like inflamed. And so when I went to go get it put on Wednesday, there was this young dude and an older woman. And the older woman was like coaching him up throughout the whole process. So he's got this like needle about to go in my arm. She's like, no, turn it to the side. You want it to rub against the skin, only an inch of skin. She's like, wait, come back. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude, he about to bludgeon me with this thing. But that was a whole process in itself. But
And about to expect you with TB.
yeah, so we'll see how it goes this week. Hopefully we can get another one up during the week and then also next Sunday. But if you have any questions, please submit them on IG, on Twitter. You can find us at the Burgundy Zone, or in the Discord if you want to join up with us. Also, we're going to be doing our fantasy football league again, the Burgundy Zone Alpha League. Hall needs to accept his invite into that, and so that way we can get up and running again. I think we said Sunday, the day before Labor Day, so August 31st is when we'll be having that fantasy draft. So you want to be a part of it, just let me know. I'll send you the invite. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Washington football. Woo!
Peace.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.